was about 16, 17 years old. I grew up in the church, and in this one particular church there was a pastor, and him and I didn't exactly get along. And I won't get into all the stories of that, but I'll get into just a few right now. And I remember one time I was growing as a leader in the church, even as a young person, and I remember he called me in to do a one-on-one with me. And this church was about 45 minutes out, and so I drove out to the church and I did a one-on-one with him. And he just started it felt like he was just railing on me. And he was getting on me for something that he thought I was doing wrong. Now get this, here's what I was doing wrong, right? So he's a praise and worship leader, and I'm just sitting in the regular pews and everything, and all of a sudden he's saying that during praise and worship I need to keep my eyes open. My eyes have to be open and not closed, so I'm aware of what's going on. Yes, it is as silly as it sounds right now, okay? And so he was upset with me that I wasn't keeping my eyes open, that I'm a leader, I need to be aware. Now again, I wasn't on the praise and worship team, I wasn't on the ushering team. There was really no need for me to be aware, but he found something very petty. And I remember I came home driving 45 minutes back just in tears, because my heart was to please the Lord and also to honor the leaders. I didn't understand what I did wrong. And looking back, I still don't know what I did wrong. However, I got very confused at that point in time. And I didn't know what was going on, because it made no sense to me, the context of this or anything. All I know is that I was told I was wrong and doing something wrong, and it didn't make sense and brought a bit of disillusionment at that time. And I remember that I would notice this pastor going into church all the time. And I should preface this with this, that during that time, I was praying hard. I was probably praying about 4 hours a day. I would come home from school, spend time in my room just praying, talking to God, communicating with Him, worshiping Him. I was on fire for God. And so, I just remember that just putting it all in for God in those times. And I remember then that little thing kind of tweaked me a little bit. I didn't understand, but yet I saw this pastor go into church and he would be smiling, be happy. Now again, I told you there's a lot more stories, so I'm not going to tell you all the stories. However, I knew that this guy was not a man of God. All right? He was not a man of God, not a person that I respected as someone who loved God and everything, even though in the church it seemed that way. And so I remember seeing him coming and smiling every time he was in church, and I remember talking to God, well, God, if he can come in and smile, if he can come in and seem happy, then, I'm sacrificing a lot here to pray to you, and I don't feel necessarily as happy as that, and, maybe I don't need to be praying as much. Maybe I need to be doing less and not doing as much as I'm doing here towards you, God. And so I started cutting out things in my prayer life. And I started thinking, okay, if maybe that's the way to do it, maybe I'm wrong, maybe he knows something that I don't, maybe I need to keep my eyes open. And so all of a sudden I started going and following that direction, and it was not a good direction. I realized, all right, after about 6 months, that this was a mask that this guy was putting on, right? That this wasn't real, that this smile was just that, fake happy Christian smile. And that was a rude awakening, because I really had given up my prayer life to all of a sudden for this nonsense, this thing that wasn't real, and that hurt. And I was able to get back on track, and I'm grateful to God for that. However, that was something that brought a bit of a difficulty and brought, I would say, a stronghold in my life. Now, if you remember, we did talk about the anatomy of a stronghold, and I want to touch on that one more time. If you remember that a stronghold, the anatomy of it, 4 different parts, and that's the initial incident or thing that took place. I would say the thing that took place for me in that incident was when he confronted me, and then I got disillusioned. I began to choose to believe, right? That's the second part of or anatomy of a stronghold. The incident, and then the choice that you start believing something. You choose to believe something that's most likely not true, but perhaps it's something that, I was disillusioned. I'm thinking, maybe he knows something I don't. Maybe he has a better prayer life, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something I don't understand. And yet I knew that wasn't right, okay? And then you choose, number 3 of a stronghold is that all of a sudden you choose to do something to protect yourself in the future. You start making choices to protect things in your future so that you don't fall into that incident again. And then the 4th part is that you actually change your behaviors. You actually see the natural behaviors and actions changing from that stronghold. And again, when you look at a stronghold, think of it like a castle or a fortress, something that is built up, right? Or look at it like that pitfall where all of a sudden you're in that pit that you fell into, and now you're entrapped in that place. And so that's what took place in that moment, where a stronghold started to form. Now, who is the author of that stronghold? Was that God, or was that the enemy? Did God say, hey, I want to put this in place? No. I do believe that God turns all things for the good to those that love Him. However, at the initial point of this was not good. It was authored by the enemy. And the enemy was trying to get a foothold or a stronghold in my life in that moment in time.